Garu from Sunshine Hospitals, and the coordinator of this Atal program, Dr. L. Sriramakrishna, and the supporting students, staff. A very good morning to all of you. In fact, this is a great opportunity for the Department of Mechanical Engineering to conduct such a program, which is the need of the day. And I can say they are eminent personalities who are here with us to share their valuable experience to the audience. I hope this program will definitely help all the students in enriching their knowledge in the area of 3D printing technologies. Also, we have people from hospitals sharing the applications of 3D printing. In fact, Professor Sriram Krishna was telling that we have a couple of resource persons from medical background, doctors who are involved in this. In fact, this engineering, even it has wide applications into medical and various other great applications. With these few words, I first of all thank the resource persons and also congratulate Professor Sriram Krishna for doing a wonderful job. Thank you very much.
So thank you, sir. I welcome on behalf of Professor Sriram Venkatesh, is also one of the coordinator of this program. Sir will be joining shortly, sir. Now, I request Sweta, please introduce the speaker of today's session. Ms. Sweta, please introduce sir to the audience, please.
I welcome all the panelists and participants to the third day of the Atal AICTE online FDP. Am I? Hello?
Yeah, audible. Please continue.
Yeah, audible.
Please continue.
I welcome all the panelists and participants to the third day of the Atal AICTE online FDP. Am I? Hello?
Yeah, audible. Please continue.
Yeah, audible.
Please continue. There is some lagging, Sweta. There is some disturbance.
Kumar, sir, mechanical engineering at IIT.
Sweta, there is some disturbance from your side. Sweta, there is some disturbance. You switch off your video and
On Dr. Surya.
you switch off your video, Amma, then you can start internet connection.
I did switch off the video, sir. And sir
Please
will deliver
continue.
a lecture on design for 3D printing. Sir has done his BTech and MTech from IIT Madras and PhD from IIT Bombay. His research interests include additive manufacturing, particularly of metals, CAD/CAM, 3D printing for bio application, manufacturing of functionally gradient matrix through weld deposition, slicing and path planning strategies for building complex metallic parts via AM. Effect of area filling paths on residual stresses in additive manufacturing are some research themes he is currently engaged. He is involved in developing the unique digital fabrication course at IIT Hyderabad for first year BTech students, introducing them to 3D printing. He is also the recipient of Excellence in Teaching Award by the Institute for the year 2013. I humbly invite Dr. Surya Kumar, sir, to continue with his valuable presentation. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you everyone for a warm welcome. I will, maybe if I can share my screen, I can start.
Yeah, I am giving the access.
Yes, please.
You can share now, sir.
I'm on the right. Okay.
Yeah,
I hope
we are
I'm
able to
visible
see.
and clear, right? Okay.
Clear, sir. Everything clear.
Okay. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for a warm welcome. So, the topic of my presentation is essentially design for additive manufacturing. And I usually say it's not really designed for additive manufacturing. It is actually designed with additive manufacturing, because most of the time additive manufacturing gives a lot of freedom and flexibility to the user, which we seldom use. Okay, so it's actually how you can design much more complicated, much more wonderful shapes, which are usually not possible through your traditional manufacturing methods, with the help of AM. So I mean, so AM becomes not a bottleneck, but a enhancer and a facilitator in ensuring that your designs are properly come across. So this is essentially kind of the quick overview of my session today. So what is DFAM? So DFAM usually we mean design for additive manufacturing. So this is in the same context like all your design rules. So for example, if you are talking about casting, you have design for casting rules. You have design for forging, you have design for plastic assembly, you have design for injection molding. Okay, so in the same manner, what are the rules or what are the guidelines which you can think when somebody is using a 3D printer or somebody is using a additive manufacturing as one of the examples. Okay, so this is essentially the topic. So how do we unlock the AM potential and how we can facilitate the much wider use of additive manufacturing? And second is understanding the requirements which are required essentially in the context of additive manufacturing. And then how can we rethink the complete design in the additive manufacturing context? Okay, so these are essentially some of my topics what I will be covering today. So I mean, so before I go into this thing, so unlocking, what I mean here is most of us kind of it's not just a tool but a great facilitator. Okay, so for example, I mean, so the reason I keep saying this is 10 years back, 20 years back, or even traditionally today. Okay, so if you have an idea in mind and you want to fabricate it, okay, so there is a lot of this workshop practices, this I mean tool room, these things, and you should learn lathe, or you should know CNC, or you should know milling machine, or you should know welding. Okay, so there are a lot of details which any designer had to be familiar with for manufacturing. Okay, AM makes all that unnecessary. Okay, so even a 10th class kid, even without any necessary background, also can design, conceptualize, and make his or her own models. Okay, so that's essentially kind of the whole idea here. Okay, so I usually kind of jovially put it this way, that additive manufacturing or 3D printing makes manufacturing possible for even people with no manufacturing background, or I mean, it is like the manufacturing for the dummies. Okay, so it's like the calculator of the mathematicians. Okay, so gone are the days when you need to kind of do some multiple calculations, etc., to do a simple trick. Okay, or to do a simple geometry calculation. Okay, so it's more like, for example, the way mobiles have helped your milkman compute the monthly bill very quickly, or the paperman compute the monthly bill very quickly. In the same manner, the arithmetic background is not needed, but the task is done. Okay, so this is essentially a similar facilitator when it comes to manufacturing. So the tool, I mean, so we look at it like a tool. Okay, so where additive manufacturing makes the users very, very friendly and easy to use. Okay, and makes all this digital fabrication makes all this possible by looking at it like a functional tool rather than as a specialized job. Okay, and I mean, so this kind of this is my favorite quotation. So from paraphrased from Mahatma Gandhi's this thing. So not mass production, but by production by masses. Okay, so I think, I mean, Gandhiji meant it in the context of mass production and big factories versus rural industries, etc. But I think the same quotation is equally applicable in our context also today, where to make something, you need to kind of have a setup, you need to have a kind of a machine, lathes or CNCs or shapers, etc. Now, you just have a simple 3D printer which will cost you probably 20,000-30,000 or maybe 1 lakh, etc. And you can make things at your own disposal, at your own convenience. Okay, so it kind of makes the production or manufacturing processes possible by the masses. Okay, I think that is one of the biggest benefactor of the additive manufacturing or 3D printing. And the same also applies in the learning sphere also. Okay, so yeah, I think, I mean, so for example, computers are a good example. Okay, so when you talk about computers and programming, it used to be very high level in the one earlier stages. Then it has become a first year courses subsequently. And nowadays, I mean, you also have these schools advertising, although I really hate that kind of a this thing. But the point here is that as the technology matures, it actually becomes easier and easier to understand and to practice the technology. Okay, so the same happens with mobiles, the same happens. So I think the first time I got my mobile was I had a huge booklet which I read from user manual from top to the bottom. Okay, this is how you add a contact, this is how you delete a contact, etc. And now, I mean, our kids manage our mobiles better. Okay, so I mean, so the point is, as the technology matures, it becomes actually simplified. Okay, and the same, in our opinion, is also true with additive manufacturing or digital fabrication or 3D printing, whatever you call it. Okay, so our vision is 3D printing is not necessarily just a PG level course or a elective, etc., but something which is very fundamental and basic today for every engineer. It's not just mechanical engineer. So every engineer, just like you are teaching him how to draw, how to, I mean, so just like edit, I mean, graphics or your engineering drawing is the language of engineering today, where you can able to commute or draw something or codify some idea. 3D printing is today the equivalent reality part of it. Okay, so you have any idea, you want to make it into a reality, 3D printing becomes a necessary tool for you. So you are working on robotics and want to develop a robot, 3D printing is there. If you are working on a sensor and looking at developing a casing for your sensor, 3D printing. If you are working in chemical engineering and want to develop the flow rate or the mixing rates, 3D printing again. Okay, so it's not essentially not just about a additive, I mean, a postgraduate level or a PG level course. It can be, but it's also is today a very basic tool, which I think has become essential in my opinion. It's not just an option any longer. Okay, so this is the same idea. We are having a digital fabrication lab in our IIT Hyderabad. So we are like one of the first in doing it. So we were the, I think, I mean, are probably the first to do it in India. Is we said, look, not as a postgraduate, first semester BTech, every UG student who attends, who joins IIT Hyderabad will be taught 3D printing in the first semester itself. And it's not just mechanical, electrical, computer science, metallurgy. Every student who enters IIT Hyderabad has familiarity with 3D printing as a basic tool. And so tomorrow, whatever project he or she does, they have the ability to kind of convert that idea into a reality. So I mean, so this is how the course goes on. So in the first part we teach them CAD modeling, and in the second part they do the projects on 3D printing of their own choice. So that is something. Okay, so I think that is kind of the background we are looking at today, where 3D printing is no longer just a hi-fi high-end stuff, but a basic tool. Okay, and how do we kind of capture that tool? Okay, so the whole idea is how do you redesign the concept? So I mean, so these are essentially the various points related to it. So first is essentially integrated design, and then how do you kind of, I think I will go into details of each of it. Okay, so how do you kind of integrate the design in such a manner so that the total assembly or the total components are reduced? Okay, so for example, I mean, so this was one example where we had 16 components which were earlier made by the traditional manufacturing methods, and how by redesigning or rethinking, you can make it into one single consolidated component. And there is that famous GE turbine blade example also, where, I mean, I think GE has produced some 50 or 60 components are reduced into one single component, etc. Okay, so how you can think of an integrated design with the help of 3D printing. The second is, of course, how a component can be individualized or created into a particular product, a particular individual geometry, individual shape, etc. The third is how do you kind of efficiently design the component for necessarily the operation or the required purposes. or to increase the efficiency. And of course, the fourth is essentially how do you make it lightweight or make it easier to, optimize the weight, optimize the performance, etc. criterion. Okay. So these are some general selection guidelines which are given in any textbook sort of a thing. So to just summarize all this, so essentially the primary objective and what are the secondary objective. Based on that, you have to carry out the redesign process. So for example, in a medical device, the design space are essentially the requirement of the patient are the primary objective. And the secondary objectives can be, for example, weight reduction or cost reduction or lot size, etc. Whereas, for example, if you are talking about a mold insert, for example, okay, so then maintaining a constant temperature or a constant flow rate becomes important. Maybe efficient cooling and again weight reduction, etc. becomes secondary objectives. Okay, so any design, any concept you are working on, it's important for us to list out what is the primary objective and what is the secondary objectives, and accordingly work on the redesigning of these concepts. Okay, so I think this looks very abstract. I realize that. Okay, but don't worry, I'm going to give you examples of each of them to make it convenient for you to appreciate. So so how do you do that? Okay, so the major emphasis here is to kind of understand the requirements of your AM parts correctly first. Okay, I think that's kind of goes in the first set. So this is my favorite example. Okay, so first to design for 3D printing, you have to. So when you're designing for the 3D printing, you have to first realize what is the background or how the 3D printing works in a system. And the fundamental, all the other details apart, I think one thing you have to realize is 3D printing works in a layer by layer manner, in a sequential layer by layer manner. Okay, so that's kind of the whole. I think this is a nice time-lapse video of some of the builds. Okay, most of it you already know, but the picturization is beautiful. So I think I would spend 2 minutes in putting it out. Okay, so that's kind of how the process evolves. Okay, so how layer by layer the process is going to evolve. Okay, sorry, I think. So again, I think this is one good example. So you see the designer has completely designed the component. It's very complicated, of course. Okay, but if you look at it in the way it is evolving, you don't need support material. Okay, so although the shape looks complicated enough, the designer has ensured that at each level, the overhang is just little enough so that the support is not needed. Okay, so otherwise the whole component could have become much more complicated. Okay, so that is how you kind of control your angles, control your peripheries, etc. so that complex shapes can be manufactured without any support material, etc. also needed. Okay, so so that's a good example of how you can rethink the design to suit your support material requirements, to minimize those options, etc. also. And again, observe how the infill pattern is happening here. Okay, so the infill is actually optimized at every location you don't see the material fully filling all the internal and unnecessarily wasting a lot of time. And this is actually what you call as gyroid infill. So even the shape looks beautiful when you actually look at it. Okay, again, I mean, some more examples. Okay, of how you can build some. I mean, a lot of examples you can think of. Okay, so so the important thing here is whenever you are talking about additive manufacturing or 3D printing, it is layer by layer, of course. That is important. I mean, that's obvious. But how do we consider that and realize it in our design is what makes it important. Okay, so it's always you have to realize that always because of the layer by layer method, there is going to be a stair step effect. Okay, so and the greater the roughness, greater the layer thickness, greater is going to be surface roughness. And lower the layer thickness, lower is going to be the surface roughness. That's always something you have to live by. Okay, but how does it impact on the part orientation? Okay, so for example, imagine a simple cylinder. Okay, the same cylinder, okay, is in one orientation essentially in the vertical orientation and the other is in the horizontal orientation. Now what happens here is in the XY, the machine is fairly accurate. Only in the layer direction, the Z direction is where your problem comes. Okay, so how do you kind of, so essentially, so between A and B, okay, if you want a smoother finish, okay, then the vertical direction cylinder gives you much more smoother finish than the horizontal, because here what is happening is the layers are going to kind of form in a sequential manner here. Okay, in a stair step effect is going to come in the inside of the component, whereas here that stair step effect is not going to come because it is a vertical ball as long as the Z axis is concerned. Okay, and in the XY axis there is no stair step effect. It can be much smoother and much convenient. Okay, so even the same cylinder, okay, can be I think what I would do is just switch off my video here so that it becomes little faster. I hope there is a lag because of the video. So I'll just share my screen and I will pause my video feedback. Okay, so I hope it is better now. Okay, so this is, I mean, so it's the same simple cylinder, but in different orientations, and you are essentially going to get different roughness or different smoothness across the layers. Okay, so again, I mean, so this is the basic reason, okay, why it is happening. Because if it is in the plane, every time it's the same circle which is overlapping across the layers. Okay, whereas if you have a hole which is kind of I mean angled, okay, this stair step effect you see here, okay, is going to come in the layers. Okay, so this is the reason why a simple part orientation also so much it affects. Similarly, again, so for example, if you have a component like this, okay, so I think I meant wrong for both of them, but actually this is right and this is wrong. Okay, so the reason here is what is important is the step thickness. Okay, so the step thickness has to be, for example, let us say 0.17. Okay, so and I have to have 0.17, 0.17, 0.17 steps. So if I do that in this fashion, okay, what would happen here is it will approximate that value to my next layer thickness. Okay, so if 0.15 is my layer thickness, instead of 0.17, it will do it with 0.151. Okay, I mean essentially instead of 170 microns, it will be 150 microns. Okay, it will always approximate to the next layer thickness. Again, the next step is going to be 300 microns. Next is going to be 450 microns. Okay, so all the intended is 470 microns. Okay, So something like that. Okay. So it's important how even a simple step like this is, if you want to get accurate shape or accurate geometry, how you can reorient it. Okay. So part orientation, of course, will depend as per the accuracy. Okay. And similarly, you also have to realize what is the minimum feature resolution your component or your machine can comfortably do. Okay. So for example, I mean, so this is a test we usually do with any new 3D printer we have. Okay. So what we do is create walls of 0.25 mm, 0.5 mm, 0.75 mm, 1 mm, etc. And see, is the 3D printer actually making the same component with the same desired shape or not. Okay. I'm usually sure that in 90% of the cases, the 0.25 is not made. Okay. It's only usually 0.25 is approximated and made it into a thinner wall of 0.5 mm, etc. So it's also important for you to realize what is the minimum thickness you are going to realistically get in your 3D printer. And it value changes from 3D printer to 3D printer, setting to setting, etc. Okay, but so it's important that you get the value or fabricate that value, calibrate that value for your 3D printer exactly every time. The same goes for the gap also. Okay, so every time we think there is a small gap here. Okay, but eventually what happens is that gap kind of gets filled up and you don't realize any gap there. Okay, so I mean it's completely filled with material. Okay, so and the child print option is essentially also how detailed is the component you are interested in making. Okay, so for example, if you are looking at a STL file, okay, so you should not be so coarse that it kind of gives a lot of faceted object. Okay, but it cannot be also very fine, because what will happen is the size of the file and the time it takes to process the file again increases. So you have to kind of have the right size and detail enough so that you can have the optimal file size for the required facility. The same goes for example and your details needed also. Okay, so it's the same geometry you see. Okay, the same CAD model. Okay, but you can see I mean, according to the detail required or according to the process used. Okay, so the detailing is very different. Okay, so for example, I mean, on this side you have extremely accurate details, and on this side it is very coarse details. Okay, so depending on, but this can be, for example, cost you only 80 rupees, and this can cost you probably 2000 rupees. Okay, you have to also optimize. You cannot just always say, look, this is what I would like. Okay, because that's accuracy comes with a lot of cost and a lot of time. Okay, so you have to also optimize and know what is the geometrical requirement you have so that you optimize the time and cost involved. And the next, essentially, the idea here is how do we redesign the complete or rethink the complete design in the additive manufacturing context. Okay. So for example, I mean, so this is my favorite example. Every time somebody talks about conformal cooling ducts, okay, by default, they always think that the ducts are circular. Okay. Most of the cases, the ducts are circular because they are done by drilling in most of the tool rooms, etc. Okay. But when you're talking 3D printing, why should it be circular? Okay. So essentially, it's just a habit of by creating a hole. Okay. But in the AM context, additive manufacturing context, okay, circular hole are not really easy. Okay. In fact, I mean, a triangular hole is much more easier. Okay. So for example, if you look at it, okay, so usually when I say a hole, okay, people will always default think of a circular hole. Okay. Because they're so habituated to the traditional manufacturing, to the milling, to the drilling context, etc., where a circular hole is the easiest. But in the 3D printing context, the circular hole is not easy. It's actually the triangular hole, which is much easy to realize. Okay, so because actually a circular hole will need a support material to be put, to be added inside. Okay, whereas a triangular hole, which is a 40 degrees, 50 degrees, etc., can be easily realized by the inherent overhanging ability of the material. You don't need an additional support material if you are using a simple triangular hole. Okay, and the purpose is necessarily to just extract heat and to cool down. Okay, so it maybe it's not circular is not necessary. Triangular may be much more efficient also. Okay, so we have to redesign and rethink how we are kind of doing in the additive manufacturing context and get rid of the habits of kind of which are comes with the traditional manufacturing. Okay, so this is always kind of self-supporting angle itself is adequate enough. Okay, so these are some examples which I have kind of used. Okay, so for example, if you look at it, this shape. Okay, so what we have done without any support material. Okay, you can see the two triangles are converging. Okay, and these triangles can kind of go around across with the same cross section very easily. Okay, now if the same is actually a circular hole, it's not easy to achieve or not easy to develop. Okay, so similarly, we have also done some injection molding tools using the same concept. So for example, this is a tool you are looking. Okay, but what happens here is this has internal ducts inside it where the duct is going inside following the profile of the geometry and coming outside. Okay, and this we could do it in metal without any problem. Okay, by using the inherent bar hanging or triangular ducts essentially, as we said. Okay, so this is another example how we can redesign the how we can kind of rethink the design in the context of 3D. Okay, so this is a simple Android bot, just a simple 3D model. Okay, which okay. So now I would demonstrate how by doing small changes, you can actually make a lot more improvements in the way it is meant for 3D printing. Okay. So this is essentially taken, designed by me, but it's a standard Android bot. Okay, so nothing important. Okay, so if you look at it, if I run that in my current this STL file or this CAD model into my 3D printer, it takes me 445 minutes to make it. It takes me 109 cubic centimeters of material and 17 cubic centimeters of the support material to manufacture. Okay, and now let us say, so if you look at the component, the first thing which kind of gels me is this links. Okay, so it looks very nice. You have a hand and you have a joint, etc. It is very habitual for us, okay, to design in this fashion. But when I'm thinking about fabricating it in a 3D printing, what happens for me is this is a power hand and this is a weak link for me. So once I start thinking as a 3D print designer, okay, so this little joint you see becomes a headache for me or becomes a issue for me. So the first thing I can do is, for example, make the hands as a, it's an Android part, of course. Okay, so see here I'm assuming you can make those changes. The design space allows you to. If the design space doesn't allow you, it's a different ballgame. Okay, but how can we just make some simple changes as a designer to see and to kind of facilitate how the whole process goes on? Okay, just by making the hand, the link very minimal and merged together. Okay, what you can see is essentially I have brought down my timing from 445 to 431 minutes. Okay, and I could save 3% in cost and 15% in the material of the support. Okay, but more importantly, my component now is much stronger. I don't have any issue in cleaning the support. I can comfortably clean the support in a rigid fashion without having to worry about a broken hand. Okay, so my model is now much stronger and much easier for me to do the support material removal. Then again, so what else can we do? Okay, so again, usually our habit is whenever we talk about an eye or an ear, etc., we always think of a protrusion. Okay, so you look at it essentially, if you look at this component, so put the nose, but I have protruded the nose there. Okay, that's our usual habit. Okay, in when you are drawing or when you are designing. Okay, but in the design intent, what is happening is just to realize that small nose and ears. Okay, the supports are having to be employed all the way up till here. Okay, so what I have done is made the material instead of a protrusion geometry as a notch geometry. Okay, so again, essentially I'm just illustrating as an example of a designer. Okay, from that perspective. Okay, and you can see it has drastically reduced my time it takes from 431 minutes to 354 minutes. Okay, think it's almost like a 1 hour reduction direct right away. Okay, and a 27% reduction in the support material also. Okay, so I mean, so look at the saving I have done just by making that instead of the nose being protruding out, the nose is a cutout section. Okay, and I mean, it's a very simple change. Okay, but look at how much time and cost we are going to save by just that simple change. Okay, so again, I mean, so this is where it stands. Okay, so again, if I look at it, the next space where I'm losing a lot of time is in the antenna. Okay, on the top. Okay, and why did I put the antenna like that? Basically because I'm habitual for circular antennas. Okay, but who says antennas has to be circular? Okay, so I mean, so if I can just make a little 45-degree antenna there instead of a semicircular antenna, I can get rid of my support material again there because I'm utilizing the self-supporting material itself there. Okay, and here with this one change, I'm able to make almost like a 50% saving in the support material. Okay, and almost a 8% saving in the time. Okay, so and if you look at all these totals, okay, so this is what I have started with. And this is what I am finally redesigning it. Okay, I'm able to save almost 27% in time and 70% in the support material. Okay, and without drastically compromising on the design intent and on the aesthetics. Okay, so that's important. Okay, so how do you kind of rethink the design in the additive manufacturing context, which makes it easy for you to kind of design suited for additive manufacturing or 3D printing. Okay, so this is one example. Okay, so the second example I am favorite is about joints. Okay, so the moment you think about joints, okay, so for example, you are working on a robotic joint. Okay, the moment you have a joint, you always think of a joint like this: one hole here, one screw on the top, one nut in the bottom, etc., etc. Okay. This is our standard habit, okay, which is very true in the case of machining. I mean, so this is definitely the best machining setup. So most robots, most industrial robots, most joints, etc., work in the same mechanism. But the problem is the moment you kind of say you're 3D printing a robot, you simply borrow that same idea here. Okay, and simply kind of say this is essentially I'm going to 3D print this component and 3D print this part and then use again 3D print the nuts, etc. Okay, and it looks, frankly, in my opinion, looks really ugly. Okay, so whereas can we rethink the joint suited for 3D printing in a different manner? So usually in 3D printing, these kind of joints are not easy. Okay, what are much easier are your revolute joints. Okay, so for example, can we have the same joint in a revolute manner, okay, where which is much easier for you to 3D print. So these two are very easy to 3D print and they are just snap fits. So much easier for you to do the assembly, etc. also. And you are using actually much more accurate and much more easier flexibility you are getting, with which is exactly suited for 3D printing. Okay, so this is kind of how you can rethink a simple joint when it comes to 3D printing. Okay, so this is my favorite example. Okay, so I mean, so a robot here usually would look like this. Okay, so where, I mean, if you pay attention, okay, each of these is actually a revolute joint. Okay, and you get the complete freedom in the movement. Okay, so you see essentially the wrist can rotate, the wrist can bend. Okay, so the again here the arm can bend, the knee can bend, etc. Okay, so you have a lot more what you call axis of freedom or degrees of freedom here, but with much more simple geometries which are suited for additive manufacturing perfectly. Okay, so the whole idea is so the moment, I mean, so but the problem is like this. Okay, so the moment I am thinking about a 3D printing a robot, I usually think that this is how I make a metal joint and I'm going to replicate the same using 3D printing. Okay, and this is usually what we end up. Okay, we should not do that. Okay, so whenever we are talking about 3D printing, we should also redesign or rethink which method is best for 3D printing. Okay, and so essentially, for example, as I said, this is an example of how a revolute joint, for example, is the best method for a simple geometry. Okay, So I mean, and in fact, you can create very jazzy and very favorite toys or favorite these things also like this. Okay, and as you can see, it is completely customized. Okay, so the beauty of it is like this is a Lego kit in figurines. Okay, but more importantly, all the components here, whatever you see here, okay, are looking complicated, looking very sophisticated, but all of them can be 3D printed without support material. Okay, that's important. Okay, so I mean, so not just 3D printed, but 3D printing without even the need for a support material here. Okay, so that's the beauty of how you can rethink the design space. Okay, when suited to the editor, suited to how your printer is seated. Okay, and this is not just about joints, etc. Even the font you are using. Okay, so I keep saying, so for example, I mean, just to kind of give an example there. So let us say, okay, so this kind of a simple font you are using, okay, also makes a difference. Okay, so for example, in the top, what I have done is used Times New Roman. Okay, it looks beautiful probably. Okay, but the problem here is the Times New Roman has different thicknesses at different zones. Okay, so for example, I mean, the H here is 2 lines, whereas the center line is single line. So the moment I am looking at this simple H, okay, as a area filling code. Okay, what is happening here is I am looking at a area filling code where it has to go like this. Maybe I will just use my pointer. Okay, so if I am looking at a simple code here, I'm looking at essentially my printer going in this fashion, going here again, going again here in this fashion, again going out, and again filling it here, filling it here. Okay, and here it's only doing it twice. Okay, and here again it is doing it 4 times. Okay, you see how difficult it becomes to make a single H. Okay, whereas for example, okay, it becomes much more easier for me because it is a constant thickness angle. Okay, so this is, I mean, so so even a font, okay, usually Treblent or Verdana are usually preferred in 3D printing whenever you want to emboss them instead of Times New Roman or instead of Helvetica, etc., etc. Okay, so the simple font you are using also makes a lot of difference. Okay, as you see in the this font, all the letters are of same thickness, and so essentially my embossing or my this thing is also the same thickness. Okay, so that is how you have to kind of rethink the whole manner in which you are making your components for the 3D printing. Okay, I think these are just some examples I wanted to illustrate the concept. Okay, so I mean, I will just briefly talk about our research also here. So we are usually working in design for additive manufacturing, and how to, for example, incorporate the material continuity constraints into the topology optimization. So people talk about topology optimization all the time. Okay, so but can you also include the additive manufacturing constraints into the topology optimization codes so that it becomes much more easy for you to do them simultaneously? Okay, so these are essentially kind of how. So for example, I mean, a simple geometry like this. Okay, so you can have, for example, 3 holes. Okay, but the problem is you will have, if you have these 3 holes, what will happen is there will be first this green step, then the machine is going to pause, then the material is going to be again withdrawn, and again another material is going to come, again start and stop, again start and stop, again start and stop, etc. Okay, whereas in this design there are only 2 start and stops. Okay, so for example, in a plastic model it does not matter probably. Okay, but if I am doing the same in a metal printer with the laser being switched on and switched off so many times, okay, it becomes a concern for me. Okay, so how do I kind of consider these constraints into my design domain. Okay, so this is something kind of we are working on. So I mean, so we do kind of all the include the topology optimization with our additive manufacturing constraints, etc., etc. We divide the. I think I will skip the details here. Okay, but the idea here is, for example, if you look at it, okay, so this is the initial geometry, okay, which is kind of, you see a stray element is here, a here, okay. The geometry is optimized in such a manner that stray elements, stray components or stray voids are eliminated, and you have a much smoother surface which is easy to manufacture using 3D printing. Okay. So this kind of, I mean, so it's an automated code which runs. So I mean, so it takes the model, okay, in a pixel format, okay, then it so for example, I think it's not just in this component, okay, but you see that also in many times, for example, a simple bone geometries or knee joints, etc. Okay, so for example, what happens the moment you take a medical data, okay, the CT scan data is very raw. Okay, and you have lot of noise and lot of small features, etc., which are very cluttered. Okay, so can we kind of smoothen it out? Can we kind of get rid of all the noise around and make it in such a manner that it is smoother, easier to fabricate, faster to fabricate, and can we have a code take care of those kind of requirements? Okay, so that's the basic idea here. Okay. So these are some examples of how our code works. Okay. So for example, I mean, so this is a bad entity. Okay. So why? Because it is just a 0.5 mm line which is hanging out, and it has no purpose except to break very quickly. Okay. So how do we kind of modify it so that those kind of stray elements are eliminated? Okay. So again, I mean, so these are what are 0.5 mm, 0.2 mm stray elements. Okay. And you actually don't end up realizing them in any way. Okay. So you kind of, how do you modify the components so that these become easy? Okay, so there is something, some work we have been carrying out at our end. So I mean, so how we do it, I mean, so how we kind of make it simpler for the geometries to be easy to manufacture, easy to 3D print, etc. Okay, so this is kind of, I mean, so how, I mean, so some case studies, how we have done it and proved that it's actually better, improved, etc., etc. Okay, I think, I mean, all this I will skip. Okay, so coming to the conclusion, okay, so I think, I mean, definitely I will emphasize the point here is 3D printing is actually not just about this thing, but making the manufacturing accessible to the masses. Okay, I think that's the whole idea here. Okay, I mean, our manufacturing easier to practice, easy to practice. Okay, so if you look at, for example, the global experience, okay, so 3D printing is not just a kind of one of the elements, but it's actually completely transforming the way fabrication and making or product design is happening across the world. Okay, so for example, I just want to quote some few examples here. So you have the RepRap project, of course, which is kind of the whole. So open source software is very common. Okay, you have Linux, you have a lot of other open source software, but 3D printing is one of the few places where open source hardware or open source machines are available and possible. Okay, so similarly, you have, I mean, easy to assemble kits which comes in probably 20,000 or 30,000, where you can buy the complete kit, assemble it to your own home in less than 30,000 rupees. Okay, so you can make your own 3D printer today with maybe less than 30,000. Okay, so that's kind of not difficult. Okay, step by step video files are there, so it takes you less than a week to do it at your own place. Okay. And similarly, you also have not just the printers, but the whole models also are freely shared. Okay, so Thingiverse is my favorite website. Okay, so you just go to the website, you have beautiful CAD models. You can just download them, print in your own 3D printer and use them. Okay, so absolutely free. All the components, all the files are absolutely freely shared. Okay, and you have thousands of them across on the websites. And this is one good example of how mainstreaming of 3D printing is also done. Okay, so when in the early days of the COVID, in the April and May periods, Okay, so when the traditional manufacturing was yet to catch up with the requirements of these, I mean, face masks and face shields, etc., I think lot of innovation and lot of activity happened using open source medical supplies also. In fact, I mean, NIH, it is essentially the official health and National Institute of Health for US department, okay, has created a subdomain for essentially sharing components related to COVID use in their website. So you can just, I mean, go to the website, yeah, download the components, download the 3D printing models, and print them with your own 3D printer anywhere and freely share them, etc. Okay, so this is, I mean, so one of those examples where 3D printing is not just a hobby, but has become kind of a mainstreaming requirement also for such medical supplies, for such other clinical requirements, etc. also. Okay. I mean, so I think this is one example. I think in India also there is a group called Maker Asylum. I think they are based in Pune or something. Okay, so they have actually made they collated across all the India, and they have made, I think 5 lakh is the old figure. They have printed 10 lakh face shields across in a very emergency manner. Okay, and shipped and shared them across the India. Okay, so this is again before the traditional injection molding and all those kind of, see, because if you know, injection molding takes you 2-3 months to kind of realize the complete setup. Okay, so whereas all these efforts have been kind of collated across to meet the immediate requirements for the face shields, for the face masks, for the hooks, etc. Okay, and how even in a humble manner, even in a simple manner, people have attempted to contribute to the various requirements of the times. Okay. We also have examples of how 3D printing can be taken to schools and colleges, how to kind of make it visualize the 3D printing, visualize mathematics using 3D printing, etc. Okay. Sheffield is another example. Okay. So just to conclude in this regard, okay. So I think bringing it back to the Make in India context, okay. So in mass production, I think, I mean, China is always ahead of us. Okay, I mean, I think you can't, I mean, so I don't think it is realistic to beat China in mass production. Okay, and I mean, frankly, I don't want to be. Okay, I've seen horrible videos of Chinese factory workers with 4 hour, 5 hour, only one bio break and one bathroom shift, etc., etc. Okay, I mean, I don't want India to be like those factories of China. Okay, I want much better for my country. Okay, so but where India strength vis-a-vis China is essentially in the service industry. Okay, so where, I mean, so where we are exceedingly good is, for example, I mean, the pharma, the IT. Okay, wherever, I mean, the services are individual attention is required. Okay, wherever individual is important, wherever individuals' priorities are important, they have been doing very good actually. Okay, and I think if you look at tomorrow's manufacturing trends, it is not mass production, but it is mass customization which is going to happen. Okay, so mass customization, please underline, okay, is in my opinion future of tomorrow. Okay, and it is actually a mixing of production and service aspects. Okay, and I think that is where India should aim to be the leader. Okay, not if you want to beat China, you don't beat it in its own game. You have to create your own game. Okay, and a game which much better than that. Okay, and I think that is where mass production, mass customization, okay, is of course already a current reality. Okay, so imagine a scenario where you don't have mass produced even shoes. Okay, but for example, where you go to this thing, the consumer scans your foot and gives you a best fit geometry for your foot. Okay, even if it is a 500 rupee extra, you don't mind it. Okay, because you get the best fit for your food tax. Okay, so I mean, so that is a real consumer reality today. Okay, and I think of course decentralized manufacturing is another thrust in the post-COVID scenario. Okay, and I think additive manufacturing, 3D printing is the ideal tool for both of them. Okay, and the whole concept is essentially how do you kind of mix these together. Okay, so mass customization is essentially about both production as well as individual or customized production. And 3D printing definitely, I think, is an important tool in that regard. Okay, I think so for example, it may be implants, it may be dental implants, it may be even your this thing, it may be even shoes, or it may be apparel, anything. Okay, can we go for mass customization of the requirements? And I think that's where the future lies. And I believe additive manufacturing is definitely an important factor in that. Okay, and unless we kind of coming back to our topic here, unless we are kind of have design guidelines and are able to rethink the complete design atmosphere in the context of 3D printing, that will be possible. Okay, so I think kind of that would be how I would put it and summarize it. Okay, so I think we have few little more time for question answers, etc.
So I
So yes. So if there are any questions or any inputs from the participants,
questions,
I'll be
please
happy to
ask. Questions, please. Requested to ask the questions.
yes, sir.
Any questions are there? Sir, there is one question from Tulasi, sir. She asked, sir, I would like to know what the option of artificial intelligence in machine learning and 3D printing.
Oh, so machine learning and 3D printing.
Sir.
Yeah. So let me just understand the question. Okay. So how do you mix artificial intelligence and 3D printing? I think
Sir, your voice is breaking, sir.
Voice is, hello, sir. Sir.
Your voice is breaking, sir.
Sir, your voice is breaking.
Maybe if my voice is clear, maybe you can
type
it
clear,
here. Okay. So maybe can you type the question?
Your voice is breaking. Sir, your voice is breaking, sir. Can you please? Question is, I would like to know what are the applications of artificial and machine learning in 3D printing.
Okay. So I think there are many applications, but I think first word of caution. Okay. See, we are academicians and researchers. Okay. We are not salesmen. Okay, so we should kind of get rid of this habit to kind of just jumping onto the latest bandwagons. Okay, so what are the latest bandwagons? Artificial intelligence, machine printing, 3D printing. Okay, and the question is more like how do I mix all these together? And so I have a topic which is kind of a chutney of all the wonderful hi-fi words in the going on. Okay, I think we should desist from that impulse, but. Coming to the question, actually, there is, definitely a lot of scope there, particularly, for example, artificial intelligence and machine learning. Okay, so one area, in fact, one of our colleagues is working on that, is vibrations which happen when you're having 3D printing a component. Okay, so, as simple as, for example, if you draw a rectangle versus a circle. Okay, so a circle, for example, has a smooth curvature. Whereas a rectangle, for example, has a very sharp corner which it has to take, the machine has to take. And as a result, what happens is, in that corner, you actually end up having excess material. So you can get a smooth circle, but you usually don't end up getting a smooth rectangle. Okay, although rectangle is one of the simplest shapes you can imagine. Okay, so the machine learning essentially codes, what they can do is, can I predict? Essentially, can I learn what is the vibration which is involved in the nozzle in the machine dynamics, and can I kind of modify my tool path so that the toolpath can accommodate and address. So for example, what happens is in the curvature, I usually have to reduce my speed there or improve my your injection speed, etc., so that the material excess or the material this thing can be reduced. Okay, so this is one example. Okay, so I mean, so the major place will be how vibration control, how nozzle control, etc., can be better synchronized for 3D printing, and that definitely needs a lot of data to be interpreted and this thing, and that's where I think machine learning will come into the picture, where I mean the machine is adaptable for different geometries. So if it is a rectangle versus a simple circle, the machine knows how to adapt the speeds according to the requirements and the angles. So that's one example I can think of. And I mean, I'm sure there are so many examples. Yes.
Dynamically, the printer becomes smarter to adapt itself. As you said, with the data available data,
Yes.
the machine can become smarter by using that AI and ML things.
Correct. Yes, definitely. I think that's correct. Yes.
The another question, sir, from Murali Krishna, sir. He's from MNIT Bhopal. He asks, and I understand that design complexity increases as we move from traditional design to additive manufacturing. But then in your example where you suggested to replace the cylindrical hole with a triangular one, can you suggest the required changes in quality control methods?
See, I mean, I think that's always driven by the requirement of the user. Okay, so in fact, I mean, when we were doing injection molding, and that was the example I cited. Okay, and again, so when I said, look, I'm going to do triangular holes instead of circular holes. Yeah, the second question was, sir, circular holes have very smooth finish. Okay, triangular holes have very rough finish. I mean, what will happen to my roughness? Okay, and I mean, whereas I mean, my counter question was, Arey Baba, you actually kind of get rid of this these things, because the intention is for you to remove it, and good surface finish is bad for it, and rough surface finish is actually good for it. A triangular surface actually has a rougher surface, and that does the part, does the geometry or that does the purpose better by removing heat efficiency, removal efficiency is much better. Okay, so I think, I mean, definitely there has to be, so that the designer has to, I mean, understand what are the requirements. So for example, I'm not saying, for example, if you have a piston, engine piston, you still have to have it in a cylindrical manner. You can't make it triangular. Okay, so I'm not suggesting, but the point I'm just trying to emphasize there is, we have a lot of biases in the context which are created in the traditional manufacturing. Okay, and I think if you want to really capture the potential of additive manufacturing, you have to question some of those biases fundamentally and see, are they always required, or can we sacrifice and modify some of them? And I mean, they are very specific, so I cannot just list out that so and so are essentially there. But I mean, I would emphasize that a rethink is necessary.
Sir, another question, sir. Sir, is there any facility in IIT Hyderabad to do their research? That was some question asked by.
So we have facilities to do our research. I don't know whether we have facilities to do your research. Okay, but I mean, essentially it is kind of, but yes, we do have very good facilities at IIT Hyderabad. So I think, I mean, we can fairly say we have almost every type of printer technology, you know, we have. So I mean, so with FDM, we have some 20 printers with us. We have laser-based 3 laser-based metal printers with us, powder bed system, direct energy deposition system, bi-arc energy deposition system. We have SLA stereolithography system with us. We have powder energy deposition based binder jetting based HP system with us. We have what you call medical tissue engineering printers with us. So we have, I think. I'll just give you a website.
Your metal SLM is there, sir. Metal printer.
Yes. So we also have a metal SLM with us. Okay. So
selective laser
I just
melting, yeah.
posted. Yes, we do have a selective laser melting G version. I mean, concept laser with us also. So I just posted a link there. So I think that website has all the link and the details of everything related to 3D printing at IIT Hyderabad. So I'll be very happy to kind of know more.
Sir, one more question, sir. Can you elaborate about design for composite additive manufacturing? Will it remain same or different?
Oh,
Design
of course
for
it will be.
composite
Yes. In fact, it will remain very different. In fact, I mean, okay. So because while polymers and metals and some anisotropy is seen there, composites are much more anisotropic and show directional behavior. Okay. So I think, for example, a simple rectangular cube also. Okay. So how do you do the infilling? So for example, do you do zigzag perpendicular infill or do you do contour infill? And in the zigzag again, do you do it in the direction perpendicular to the loading or parallel to the loading? Okay, so I think when it comes to composites, design for 3D printing has much more requirements and avenues. Okay, and frankly, most of them are like
Definitely.
use small chopped carbon fibers actually, which is not necessary. So continuous fibers, it's much more advisable basically. So yes, I think there is definitely a lot of scope in composite 3D printing.
Sir, one interesting question asked by Vashish sir is asking, sir, we know 3D printing is used in all engineering backgrounds. Is there any usage for arts and science background? Will it helpful for them if they learn 3D printing design? He's asking.
Oh,
Arts
yes, sir.
and
Yes. I think, I don't mean to be offensive here. I mean it in a very well-intended manner. Okay. Usually I keep saying, look, 3D printing is manufacturing for dummies. Okay. So, so it is like your, as I said, it is like the calculator of a second-class failed person. Okay. So, so even if you have no idea of any manufacturing, if you have no idea of milling, no idea of casting, no idea of anything, okay, in fact, so 3D printing is more suitable for designers and these things than engineers, because we are kind of, so if you have any mechanical engineer, I'm sure in every college we make them do 1 year of workshop, we make them do carpentry, we make them do milling, we make them do drilling, all that, okay. Whereas artists actually don't necessarily undergo all that training. And this is a 3D technique where no background is required actually. Okay, so in fact, it's not just there is potential for it, but actually it is more convenient for designers and artists for 3D printing. In fact, I would say that.
I think, sir, 3D printing doesn't have any boundaries. It breaks everything.
Yes, correct.
It's only your thinking, creativity you can apply everywhere, anywhere, anytime.
Yeah.
So, sir, I think one person is asking, sir. Sir, can you tell me, that is Chithambaram is asking, can you tell me any online platform that helps to learn the 3D printing design software programs?
I think, design softwares I am not familiar, because there are no particular design softwares per se. Okay, so if you are working in medical, you have some design softwares like Mimix, etc. If you are working on metals, you have these residual stresses like Abacus or like, so it depends on the application specific. So there is not to my knowledge any. Yes, ANSYS has come up with on its own design this thing. So I think 3D printing is a tool. Please understand that. Okay, and so what you are going to learn design is driven by not the tool but by the requirement. Okay. And which design software you are going to use is decided not by the 3D printing, but by your requirement. Okay. So if your design requirement is medical, you have to go for Mimix, for example. Okay. If your design requirement is mechanical or maybe heating, etc., you may have to go with Abacus or something. Okay. So unfortunately, I don't think there is one particular arena where it, it's mostly still available in the colleges only. Unfortunately, it's not yet something where you can enroll and do it online.
So this question is regarding from biomaterial side. So one person is asking, I think from Vasudevan, is there Any biomaterial which can be used for part building. Biomaterial for part building. Like bioprinting. You have bioprinter, I think, sir. I had you have a bioprinter.
We do have, I mean, so we have a good team in bioprinting. So again, I mean, biomaterial and bioprinting is a very generic word. So we have, I mean, so usually biomaterials are broadly classified as 3 here. So one is the soft ones, the tissue engineering ones. So we do have tissue engineering materials with us. And then the second is the ceramic varieties, the high temperature or the other varieties. We also have a ceramic printer. And the third is essentially the metal and the implant variety. So I also have facility for implant printing, titanium implants, etc. Also machine which is capable of, for example, you want a titanium implant. Okay, so that is also. So all the 3 we do have with our IT. Yes.
Sir, one audience want to ask directly questions, sir. I am enabling as a panelist.
Sure, I don't mind.
Rawat Naresh, you can switch on your video and please ask your question. Hello?
Yes, sir. Am I audible? Yes, sir. Am I audible, sir?
If possible,
Yes,
you
sir.
can switch on your video. You can please ask.
Yeah.
You are audible.
Sir.
Please.
Yeah, you are.
Yes, sir. The plastic 3D printing and metal 3D printing. Yeah, sir. Is it fine now?
Please ask, repeat it. There's a voice breakdown. Please repeat. Now it's fine.
Am
Now
I
it's
audible, sir, clearly?
audible.
Yeah. While we are doing metal 3D printing, so the topmost layer is like we can find some disturbances on the topmost layer. So what are the reasons behind the disturbances? Because while I'm printing with metals, so when at the finishing end of the layer, which is the very topmost layer, so after the printing of the topmost layers, I can see few bubbles kind of a formation. So it is increasing the roughness like everything over there. So while we are calculating the surface roughness value for that surface,
but you have to detail which printer you are using. Metal.
Yes, sir. SLM with SS.
There are some hundreds.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah. SLM mission with SS material, sir. SLM mission with SS material. So SS316 we are using. And I have one more interesting thought, sir. So as you said, orienting the cylinder. So printing a cylinder in a vertical direction is much better than the printing it in horizontal direction. So here I have 2 dots. So while printing in plastics, so I can see a seam effect. It's kind of a joining effect throughout the length of the cylinder that I can observe one thing. So in metals also, can I change the starting position of a laser every time so that I can avoid this seaming effect? So
Yes, of
every
course.
time that scanning, yeah.
Okay, I mean, I think you have asked 3 questions, so you have to allow me to answer now. Before I answer the questions.
Okay, no problem, sir.
Okay, I mean, otherwise I'll forget the questions. Okay, let me.
No problem, sir. Yeah, I can.
Okay, so the first question is essentially your surface roughness, surface finish on the top. Naturally, I mean, so because it's just that in SLM is by the definition partial melting. Okay, you are sintering powder. Okay, so it's like for example, taking sand and spraying a little water on the sand. What is going to happen is the roughness of the sand is still inherently intact. Okay, so and the gaps are inherently there. It's just that you feel that on the top surface because top surface is what you are seeing. Okay, I mean the remaining layers are covered up by the subsequent layers. तो बचा एक ही है वो जो top surface है उसमें दिख रहा है तुम्हें. Okay, I mean but actually the same roughness, the same porosity is actually inside the components also. If you cut them open, that's there. Okay, so I think but usually it's not so significant. If you are getting it very significant, that means your process parameters are wrong. Okay, so either you are using if you are if you are getting bubbles etc., that means you are moving your laser too fast. Okay, or so I think your process parameters are SLM has some surface roughness but not very significantly high. Okay, so usually if you are not getting a good surface finish, that means you have to optimize your process parameters. Okay, so I think, I mean, so you can't just assume that just because you have a 1 crore or 2 crore machine, any parameter, any laser value you're putting, it will just come out properly. Okay, you have to know your parameters properly. Okay, and you have to optimize them for every rerun also. Okay, that's the first question. Okay, so the second question is essentially, I think, what was the second? Can you just
It's about printing of cylindrical
yes. Okay.
cylindrical
Correct.
holes. Yeah.
Okay, correct. So, I mean, see, essentially, that's again the software setting you are using, which makes that kind of a line happening. Okay, so many softwares, for example, Slick3R does, I know, allows you to randomize the starting point. Okay, so many users usually don't use that option to randomize the starting point. So usually what happens is, even in a cylinder, you kind of have a row where a line which is always kind of, because it's the same place again and again, it is starting. Okay. But it allows you, most softwares allows you to randomize the starting point. In fact, I mean, in FDM, I definitely know there are a couple of, so usually you have to go into the advanced option settings and randomize the starting point. And the same is applicable in metal also. I think, I mean, it depends on the software you're using. But definitely by usually randomizing the starting point, the problem of the bead, etc., is usually avoided. But it's not eliminated altogether. That start-stop problem is there. I think that is why I was also mentioning my design for additive manufacturing. So how do you redesign so that that start-stop problem, etc., is minimized? Okay. So for example, if I am going for a cylinder infill, I would actually prefer not 2 concentric circles, but I will actually prefer a spiral. Okay. Where, so what happens, for example, if I am doing 3 concentric circles, I'm starting and stopping, starting and stopping, starting and stopping 3 times. Whereas if I use a spiral, which is increasing in size across, okay, I'm using start and stop only once. Okay, so you can, I mean, so there are ways to kind of do some little smart redesign. Okay, but that's very case by case basis. I mean, there is no one thumb rule where a secret portion for every problem there. But I mean, it is possible. That's what I can say. Okay, and many softwares do give you that option. So.
Yeah, I have one last question, sir. Have you ever observed design software's problem? Because, sir, I'm using SolidWorks, CATIA, Fusion 360, and few more design tools. So while I'm designing components, all these type of softwares, and I'm printing, so I can see some difficulties while joining. So if I want to design a bolt or nut in Fusion 360, SolidWorks, and CATIA, so there is a problem in fixing the both, because I'm printing with the same parameters. I actually want to study about the design software. So what I did was I designed
no, but I mean, but isn't it like polishing your CAD skills there? I mean, how can I help there?
Yeah, yes,
I mean,
sir.
see, all these CAD
what I did
softwares have enough. No, I mean, see, the point is like this. Okay, there are enough options in all CAD softwares to facilitate current 3D printing. Okay, if you are not able to get them right now, I think it's just a matter of you learning it more, a little more in detail, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, yes, sir. Actually, I'm learning it in little bit more in designing. So
yes. So what exactly is the question there? Huh?
No, sir. Actually, my doubt is why this is happening, because different softwares have different accuracy levels in design. Because every design software has their own accuracy in design. While we're measuring, it is showing as a 10 mm.
No, not really. Actually, every design software allows the user to set the accuracy level. It's actually, we think we are kind of usually we don't really explore. Okay, so for example, I mean, usually we just select the export option, select STL and export. Okay, but
no, I'm not talking about the STLs.
No, I mean, so usually, okay, so there are, I mean, so every software where allow you to redesign and recalibrate according to your requirement. Okay, so these are settings which every software allows you to change usually. Okay, so the accuracy levels required can be changed by all these design softwares, and if you're not able to change them, that means you just didn't explore that software enough. Okay, that's how I would put it. Okay. I mean, I mean, you can't blame the software designers for that. I mean, that is little, I mean, kind of, bad at them. Okay.
Correct, sir.
All right. Okay.
Naresh, we have enough other participants are there. Right. Please. Thank you, Naresh, for your every session you are having so many, because you are a startup. So I really feel that you are doing wonderful work. I best to you. Thank you. Right. I will give chance to
Thank
other
you, sir.
people. Please.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
sure, sir, sure. Thank you.
Joined.
Now, Professor Sriram Venkatesh, our director of our center, has joined, sir. He is also coordinator of this program. Professor Sriram Venkatesh, you can switch on your video. Yeah,
Okay.
sir. Switch on your video, Venkatesh.
Yeah, already switch on.
Sir, he is also controller of
Okay.
examination, sir. So he is busy with his exam conduction is there. University control of
No.
examination. And
No
he is the
problem.
director of center. Our center director is. So many, sir, I think one of the best session we had, sir. So many interactions. Really great. Now I'd like to ask Professor Sriram Venkatesh to say a few words, and please, before we conclude.
At the outset, I thank
Venkatesh, Professor M.V. Reddy sir is also there in the panel. M.V. Reddy sir. Oh, you are able to see.
Morning, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I will allow you.
Morning, sir.
I thank both of you.
Joined
Atal FDP program on 3D printing and design. It is my privilege as one of the coordinator of this program and also director of Center for Product Design Development and Additive Manufacturing. So we have established a center of excellence under RUSA, Rashtriya Uchatar Shiksha Abhiyan, that is National Higher Education Mission. We have been sanctioned almost 6 crores, and we have imported this mission state-of-art 3D metal printer and also SLA, SLM, this one FDM also, and also we have 3D scanner. And at the outset, now I thank Professor Surya, IIT Hyderabad, and Dr. M.V. Reddy Garu. Dr. M.V. Reddy Garu also is our board of advisors to our center, and we are interacting frequently about to take the advice of Professor Jagan Reddy, Dr. Jagan Reddy, and Dr. M.V. Reddy. I thank if the Dr. Surya also accepts our invitation to be one of the advisors for our center in future. So we will work together, sir, and we will invite you for visit the our lab, that is Center for Prototyping and Testing of Industrial Products, that is CPDDM, Center of Excellence, which is situated in the Engineering College premises. And once again, I thank for both of you for delivering wonderful lecture for the participants, sir. Thank you very much.
Sir, really.
In fact, I will be very happy to interact more. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Sir, now one participant, sir, from MNIT Bhopal, Mr. Chimta Murali, want to speak, sir. Just 2 minutes, he will speak, sir. Please, Murali gar, please, you can proceed, please. Hello.
Hello. Good morning.
You can switch on your video, please. Switch on.
Yeah, video symbol I am not finding here somehow.
You will get. Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise.
Audio is okay.
Okay, right. You can get. Right now, you can get it.
Yeah.
You will get it. Right. You will get now. Hello. Hello. Please continue, sir. Please continue.
Yeah. Good morning, Surya Garu. Thank you very much for touching upon this design for additive manufacturing, wherein the focus is mainly cost reduction and decreasing the time. So the most important aspects that are in this you have touched upon, and I'm really happy, and I have really learned many things in this. Basically, whenever we switch over from traditional design to additive manufacturing, we have many questions related to material complexity, hierarchical complexity, cost and geometry complexity, functional complexity, etc., etc. Very good examples were given, and these things made things clear. Basically, I am from design and manufacturing, and I am really benefited from your lecture. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Murli Krishna. He is a professor from NIT Bhopal, sir, mechanical department. He is our regularly attending our program from the beginning. So, sir, on behalf of the organizing committee, sir, as your lecture is so interesting that you said to last word, 3D printing changes from mass production to production for masses. It's a very good thing, observation, sir, because it reaches to down level that even I found that some housewives are using 3D printer doing business through Amazon. So I don't know how far it's
Actually,
correct.
I would like a statement there. Actually, I came across that quote from a Japanese professor I was visiting some 6 years back. I was both happy and ashamed. I was so happy that a Japanese professor was quoting Gandhiji for digital fabrication. I was so ashamed that being in India, I didn't know that. I came across that quote through him.
Yeah.
But
we find that even some housewives are using their creative skills, using a printer, producing and connecting through Amazon, selling their goods. That is a level to which it's like a smartphone. It became like a smartphone. I think that's why it became popular. And you are really very interesting experts on design for manufacturing, but you said it should be design with manufacturing. The way we should think about in the beginning itself, because 3D printing, designing is the first stage which takes place, and if that is done correctly, everything will become correct. If it is wrong, like a garbage in, garbage out, then it will be everything fault. It cannot find mistake with the printer. But the design aspect is very crucial. I think both in biomedical everywhere, that is a way we think should change when we go for 3D printing from the conventional method. It's truly very enlightening to all of us, sir. And today morning session, it's like a one-down batsman. You played like a Sachin Tendulkar, sir, right? It's very great, sir. Very happy that we are waiting for these sessions. Today, complete all the 3 sessions are the highlights of this entire program, apart from our demo and other things, sir. Thank you very much for sparing your valuable time and joining here and accepting our invitation.